Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today, with the blessings of all the present Vaishnavas, beginning with senior most ones, Prabhupada disciples, we continue reading from the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 18. Deity vows to kill King Indra. Text 41. Sharat Padmotsavam Bhaktram. Sharat Padmotsavam Bhaktram. Vachascha Shravanamritam. Vachascha Shravanamritam. Hridayam Kshura Darabham. Hridayam Kshura Darabham. Strinam Koveda Cheshchitam. Strinam Kaveda Cheshchitam. Sharat Padmot Savam Bhaktram. Vachascha Shravanamritam. Hridayam Kshura Darabam. Strinam Koveda Cheshtitam. Sharat. In the autumn, Padma, a lotus flower. Utsavam, blossoming. Bhaktram, face. Vachaha, words. Cha, and. Shravana, to the ear. Amritam, giving pleasure. Hridayam, heart. Kshuradhara, the blade of a razor. Abham, like. Strinam, of woman. Kaha, who. Veda, knows. Cheshtitam, the dealings. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Before we're gonna be reading, I wanted to tell you in advance that it's one of those heavy verses in Prabhupada's books which attracted some criticism to Srila Prabhupada and anyone repeating those statements. But the purport is really wonderful and it sheds very clear light on the subject matter. So be ready for a surprise. Translation. A woman's face is as attractive and beautiful as a blossoming lotus flower during autumn. Her words are very sweet and they give pleasure to the ear, but if we study a woman's heart, we can understand it to be extremely sharp, like the blade of a razor. In these circumstances, who could understand the dealings of a woman? I'm sure everyone's happy with that statement, especially our ladies. So we'll proceed with Srila Prabhupada's purport. Woman is now depicted very well from the materialistic point of view by Kashyapa Muni. Women are generally known as the fair sex, and especially in youth, at the age of 16 or 17, women are very attractive to men. Therefore, a woman's face is compared to a blooming lotus flower in autumn. Just as a lotus is extremely beautiful in autumn, a woman at the threshold of youthful beauty is extremely attractive. In Sanskrit, a woman's voice is called Nari Swara, because women generally sing, and their singing is very attractive. At the present moment, cinema artists, especially female singers, are especially welcome. Some of them earn fabulous amounts of money simply by singing. Therefore, as taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a woman's singing is dangerous because it can make a sannyasi fall, a victim to the woman. We can understand that this particular statement refers to one of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, when he heard amazingly beautiful singing glorifying the Supreme Lord. And he became so ecstatic, he just started running and he wanted to embrace the singer. But it was lady singing, and Govinda, his personal servant, was running behind him, and he caught up with the Lord and he said, "Don't run to embrace that singer, it's a woman." Because we can understand, if sannyasi would embrace a woman, especially a young one, that would be total embarrassment. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, thank you, you saved my life." So we'll continue reading a purport. Sannyas means giving up the company of women, but if a sannyasi hears the voice of a woman and sees her beautiful face, he certainly becomes attracted and is sure to fall down. There have been many examples. Even the great sage Vishvamitra fell a victim to Menaka. Therefore, a person desiring to advance in spiritual consciousness must be especially careful not to see a woman's face or hear a woman's voice, to see a woman's face and appreciate his beauty, or to hear a woman's voice and appreciate her singing as very nice is a subtle fall down for a brahmachari or sannyasi. Thus, the description of woman's features by Kashyapa Muni is very instructive. When a woman's bodily features are attractive, when her face is beautiful, and when her voice is sweet, she is naturally a trap for a man. The Shastras advise that when such a woman comes to serve a man, she should be considered to be like a dark well covered by grass. In the fields there are many such wells, and a man who does not know about them drops through the grass and falls down. Thus there are many such instructions. Since the attraction of the material world is based on attraction for women, Kashyapa Muni thought, under the circumstances, who can understand the heart of a woman? Chanakya Pandit has also advised, Vishvaso naiva kartavyam strishu rajakuleshu cha. There are two persons one should not trust, a politician and a woman. These, of course, are authoritative Shastric injunctions, and we should therefore be very careful in our dealings with women. So, very heavy statements by scriptures. And I guess this is why they requested sannyasi to give a class to talk on this subject matter. Very interestingly, Yamuna Devi, very famous Srila Prabhupada's disciple, who's singing of a woman. We are listening every single day without fail at deity greetings. And she remembers how she was, because she had so much of a personal association with Srila Prabhupada, and she remembers how she was present quite a few times. As we know, this last statement Srila Prabhupada made, never trust woman or politician, was one of the most favorite statements, right? Prabhupada repeated many times. And she said she was physically present when Srila Prabhupada was quoting that. And one time in 1973, it was in Bombay, and Srila Prabhupada was talking to quite a small group of men, and apparently she was either only or one of very few ladies present at the class. Majority were men. And Srila Prabhupada quoted that never trust women or politician. And he was joking on the subject, and everyone was laughing and enjoying that. And then he looked at Yamuna, and he said, "What do you think, Yamuna?" And she said, "Srila Prabhupada, you're very right. Yes, never trust women or politician. It's correct." And Srila Prabhupada looked at her seriously. He said, "But you're not a woman, you're Vaishnavi." Which says the record very straight, that we should discriminate between these things. That's why Srila Prabhupada actually starts this very purport with the statement that woman is now depicted very well from the materialistic point of view by Kashyapa Muni. And we have to discriminate between these things very carefully. Viveka, discrimination, is one very important function of intelligence. And if someone cannot discriminate which statements of Shastra are applicable in which circumstances, then there is a very high risk of committing offenses. And actually, there have been number of offenses committed by a number of devotees who misunderstood those statements by Srila Prabhupada and had very bright ideas that if women are such a distraction in spiritual life, then this is what I've heard. Someone came up with the idea, let us put every single woman in ISKCON on one big boat, on a ship, and send them to Australia. Of course, this was a very gross misunderstanding of what Srila Prabhupada had said. And there have been number of times, especially like renunciates, brahmacharis, sannyasis would approach Srila Prabhupada and would say, "Srila Prabhupada, we have so many attractive women in this movement. How can we practice our renunciation?" Because this attraction is very serious distraction. And Srila Prabhupada would say, he even wrote that in a letter. He said, if brahmacharis are disturbed by the presence of young women, what shall they do? Go to forest and practice Krishna consciousness there. And at other times when devotees were complaining, he would say, it's very good to have young, beautiful, and very attractive ladies in the movement. Why? Because they will attract young men. For example, distributing prasadam or books on the street, and then these young men, they will follow that young woman, and where they will end up? In the temple. And of course, after they come to the temple, they will forget about this woman because there are so many other things there. especially in Prabhupada times, there were not that many new people, as Brahmananda Prabhu was recollecting when he was giving his class here, that at one Gaur Purnima festival, he was the only Western guest on the festival, and there were like 60 very enthusiastic preachers. And Prabhupada realized that he better keeps him in his association, otherwise devotees would completely burn him out in their zeal to preach and make him a devotee as soon as possible. And so we can understand that, once one comes to the temple, then one becomes exposed to Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada, he said, it's very nice that young and attractive devotee ladies can attract many men to Krishna consciousness. This is how he saw that. And the other time, someone complained, Srila Prabhupada, why there are so many girls are born in this moment? And Prabhupada looked very gravely and he said, so that they would grow up in very beautiful ladies and make all Mayavadis fall down. So we can understand that these particular statements of the scriptures and Srila Prabhupada, they are applicable to materialistic tendencies of women. And sometimes, of course, some lady devotees might become disturbed, could become disturbed by listening those statements. But it's very interesting why Srila Prabhupada, after asking Yamuna Devi, what do you think? And she said, Srila Prabhupada, I totally agree with it, it's true. He said, you are not a woman, you are Vaishnavi. Because only Vaishnavi can actually acknowledge all natural faults. Man and woman have faults naturally in the material world, but only Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis can see those faults. And even prior to becoming free from those faults, on those bases they can develop humility, which is very important prerequisite for our spiritual advancement, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions. And for this reason, we can understand this very important difference, that there are materialistic qualities in both man and woman which have to be removed, which we have to become purified from. And once one develops one's Krishna consciousness, then one does not identify anymore with the body. So actually these kind of statements of the scriptures and Acharya, as Srila Prabhupada, are specifically meant to help us see ourselves and see what we can improve. There is very interesting instance in relation to His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. When he joined the movement and he felt that some devotees have a kind of condescending attitude towards him because of his skin color. And he thought, this is a wrong thing, that because I'm black, white devotees are mistreating me. And then he came to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Srila Prabhupada, looks like there are racial prejudices in your movement. And naturally he expected Srila Prabhupada to sympathize. But Srila Prabhupada never did, interestingly enough. He said, something to the effect, if it bothers you, it means you are no better than them. Yes, they are conditioned, they judge you on the basis of the bodily difference, but if you become disturbed on the basis of the bodily differences, means you are no better than them. So you have to transcend that, bodily identification. And this is, we understand, the first and very important lesson of Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2. We are not the body, we are spiritual beings. And all these statements of scriptures are teaching us what are the faults arriving, sprouting from bodily identifications. And so we can understand that in this particular story, Kashyapa Muni laments that he was caught by his wife's sweet words, because she served him very nicely, but at the end, what did she want? She wanted him to give her a child who could kill his another son. This is terrible, right? Can you imagine the position of a father? Because for Diti, Indra was her stepson, whom he really hated, because he was acting against her direct children. And so she wanted a son who would take birth specifically to kill Indra, having this capacity. And so, of course, Kashyapa Muni is lamenting because, his wife set a trap in which he fell. And we can see there are a number of descriptions like that. One very vivid example is Dasharat and his wife, Kaikeyi, who also set a trap. She was waiting patiently for a good opportunity to ask him to fulfill her desire as he promised, and then she asked him to banish Lord Ramachandra into the forest. And it broke Dasharat's heart so badly that he actually died in separation from Lord Ramachandra. So we can see there are many descriptions like that, but they have no connection with Krishna conscious practices and Krishna conscious position. Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, Lalita Vishakadevi ki Jai. And this is what the last part of the purport is dedicated to. Please listen carefully, because Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear, makes this distinction very clear. Sometimes our Krishna consciousness movement is criticized for mingling men and women. But Krishna consciousness is meant for anyone. Whether one is man or woman does not matter. Lord Krishna personally says, Striyo Vaishyas tata Shudras tepiyanti param gatim. Whether one is a woman, Shudra or Vaishya, not to speak of being Brahmana or Kshatriya, everyone is fit to return home back to Godhead, if he strictly follows the instructions of the spiritual master and Shastra. So this is very interesting verse, because sometimes those of us who are in the male body, we might be very proud of our advantage, so-called advantage. But if we look at this verse, it says, Mam hi partha vyapashritya tepi syu papayonaya. Those who take shelter of me, even though they might be born from sinful womb, from sinful parents. And who are these people? Stri, women, Vaishyas and Shudras. Te piyanti param gatim. If they take shelter of me, they can still attain the supreme destination. And we may think, oh, women are there, but men are not included. But it says, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. Everyone in Kali Yuga takes birth as Shudra. So we can understand that men are also included in that category. In Kali Yuga, there is no difference. Like Srila Prabhupada, when he was criticized, he mentions, right, here in the purport, that sometimes we're criticized for mingling men and women. When Srila Prabhupada came to India, his godbrothers were telling him, what are you doing? You initiating, giving, initiation to women. You giving Brahmana initiation to men and sannyas to Western men. How can you do that? They are not even born as Brahmanas. And Prabhupada said, don't worry. There are no men and women in the West. They're all animals there. But they come up to the human platform by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And sometimes he would say, I'm just trying to fulfill the instructions of my spiritual master. And that was, of course, the ultimate argument, because they all knew that this is what Srila Prabhupada was told by his Guru Maharaj. And so it's not that he made it up, he decided that, oh, I want to do this. No. His Guru Maharaj wanted him to do that. That's why he did that, and that's why he attained so much success. By the blessings of his spiritual master, as we understand. So Srila Prabhupada continues, we therefore request all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, both men and women, not to be attracted by bodily features, but only to be attracted by Krishna. That's the solution. Very simple and practical solution. Then everything will be all right. Otherwise, there will be danger. End of the purport. So this is very important purport, which helps us to understand that all these troubles and all these feelings of when we feel uncomfortable reading scriptures, that's because our bodily designations are disturbed. But the scriptures, they describe these statements not because they want to make us feel uncomfortable or make us feel offended, but because Krishna, Guru and Vaishnavas, they really want to help us to become free from this conditioning. And on the spiritual level, there is no difference, as Prabhupada says, whether one is man or woman. Actually, interestingly enough, Srila Prabhupada also says that ladies have better chance to become Krishna conscious because they are more simple-hearted and they tend to be religious, and also because naturally they have this service attitude, and so this service attitude just has to be redirected. And in this regard, Srila Prabhupada was telling one interesting story which illustrates how one, as male, for example, can have big advantage, and the other one, as female, can have some disadvantages, but who really has advantages and who has disadvantages. And he was telling the story of a race between a rabbit and a tortoise. So tortoise and the rabbit, they were set to race against each other. And the rabbit was thinking, what is this nonsense? How can I race with the tortoise? In one jump, I'll be at the finishing line, so I don't need to worry. And so, while tortoise was steadily walking forward, the rabbit was just relaxing. And then he fell asleep. And actually, when he woke up, the tortoise already crossed the finishing line. So actually, the rabbit lost. Very interesting. One devotee found some video clip which actually depicted the real race between a rabbit and tortoise. And the tortoise was steadily walking forward, but when they put the rabbit on the what do you call it, running, on the racetrack, the rabbit jumped once and he stopped. And then everyone was shouting, go forward, go, jump, jump. And rabbit was just looking here, there, what's going on? What's happening? And he never moved. And he just stood there on the racetrack. And tortoise actually went forward and actually crossed the finishing line. So it's very interesting that in that real life scenario, rabbit got completely distracted. And so he lost. And so we can understand slow and steady wins the race. It doesn't matter who one is, whether one is man or brahmana or born in Vaishnava family, or one might be a woman or coming from very low background. It doesn't matter. What really matters is how seriously one takes up the process of devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada told another story, which should be the last story in this regard, a very instructive story of the topmost human being on the planet, Brahmana, very qualified Brahmana, and the lowest of all the women, a prostitute who just happened to live next door to each other. And this Brahmana, he was extremely proud of his position, and he was looking from his window at the house of the prostitute, and he was saying, this condemned, sinful woman, how she's earning her livelihood, this is horrible. And he was criticizing this prostitute every day, thinking about her activities and criticizing her every day. At the same time, the prostitute was looking at the Brahmana house, and she was thinking, this is such a wonderful Brahmana, such a wonderful devotee of the Lord. He can serve the Lord, he can help other people in such a nice way. I wish that I would become, maybe in one of my next lives, someone like him and have full opportunities to serve the Lord. And it's explained that in India, sometimes if someone is born in a certain caste, like say if prostitute have a female child, that child just has zero chances to, change the occupation. He has to follow in, or she has to follow in her mother's footsteps, unfortunately. This is how it is. And so, at least in India, this prejudices are so strong that people getting stuck in their caste positions for life sometimes, no matter how low the occupation is. And so this prostitute had no chances to earn her livelihood in any other way. And so she was lamenting and striving for, having better opportunities to serve the Lord. And it so happened that both Brahmana and prostitute, they left their bodies at the same time. And then Yamadutas and Vishnudutas appeared on the scene. And Yamadutas went to Brahmana, and Vishnudutas went to prostitute. And when Yamadutas came to Brahmana, he was complaining and he was saying, "What are you doing? I am a pure Brahmana. I know so many Shastra. I can flood you with Sanskrit verses. I can recite Bhagavad-Gita backwards and forward as you like. You cannot touch me." But Yamadutas were saying, "No, because you were always thinking of this prostitute and criticizing her, you actually took all her karma." This is why we have to be very careful about criticizing anyone, because we take people's karma. We purify them from their karma, but we take this karma on ourselves. And so Yamaduta said, because you took all her karma, you have to go to hell in her place, and she will go to the spiritual world because she was glorifying you and she was thinking about all your wonderful qualities. So she became completely purified. And because she was always repentant, and with repentant heart, she was always remembering Krishna and chanting the holy name, actually her sins had zero effect. And therefore she is going to the spiritual world. And so this is a very important and instructive story which helps us to understand what the real position is. That regardless of our bodily situation or karma or any other designations, the most important is our desire to serve Krishna, to please Krishna, because Krishna's mercy is unlimited. There is nothing Krishna's mercy can do. And so, actually, we are all mercy cases in Kali Yuga. Actually, we have no qualification. And it is the most important point for us to meditate upon. So we all just depend completely on the mercy of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and Vaishnavas. Of course, the most important Vaishnava in our life is the one who helps us to serve Srila Prabhupada properly, our spiritual master. And so by their mercy only we can continue serving Krishna. Otherwise we have no qualification. Thank you. Hare Krishna. We still have few minutes. We have senior Vaishnavas here. If someone wants to make a comment, or I'm sure there must be questions, but if anyone wants to make a comment, question? Okay.
You just were talking about be careful criticizing someone. So my question is, if you experience injustice.
Experience what?
Injustice. Somebody is treating you less.
Okay. Can you please keep the microphone closer?
You have to somehow, some way, relate to the person or say, for whatever reason. And the injustice you experience, if you tell it to somebody else, the person, after you do it with all the time, or what the person is doing or saying towards you, and you tell it to a third person, to another person, is that also karma food? Am I taking the karma of the person who is actually hurting me or treating me injustice, with unjust.
So if we criticize someone who is treating us in unjust way,
Yes.
are we taking the karma?
I and I'm hurting, and I
Yeah.
cannot bear it on my own, so I can hit somebody else because it's painful for me.
Yes. If someone is not treating us in the right way, first thing is to make sure that we're actually right about our conclusion. If person is actually wrong in treating us in a certain way, because sometimes there can be a case like that, and there are certain training courses sometimes I conduct for the devotees, and one training course is Life Without Conflicts. And one very important point we are studying is that we are the cause of everything what's happening with us. And such a thing as innocent victim does not exist. Thank you. A little bit further. Further. Yeah. And one devotee raised his hand and he said, how can you make this statement? Sometimes people mistreat you for no reason. And he gave an example. He said, I was driving my car and there was another devotee with me there. And the one other car overtook us and, pushed us to the hard shoulder and made us stop. And actually, I was scared. I was trying to escape. And then I, scratched that car with my car. And then those people, they jumped out of the car and they started screaming and shouting. They said, you damaged our car, you have to pay. And he said, I'm a spiritual man, I'm devotee of God, and if you do it for purpose, you make other people scratch your car and make them pay, it's very wrong thing to do. But they said, we don't care, so you have to pay us. And so they forced me to pay money for their scratched car, even though they were pressing me to the hard shoulder. And I didn't know what to say. It actually appeared as if this devotee is innocent victim. But then the devotee sitting next to him, he said, wait, I was in the car with you and I actually saw everything, how it happened. That little bit earlier, you overtook that car in such a way that you nearly pushed them off the road. And they really struggled to, keep the car on the road because of that, to avoid the collision. And so they became so angry with you, they caught up with you and they pressed you to the hard shoulder, stopped you and made you pay money. Like that. And then the other devotee said, exactly same thing happened to me, also driving a car. He said, my spiritual master came to the town and I was given very important service of buying his air ticket. And so these were the time when, tickets were not sold on the internet. One had to go physically and buy paper ticket from the cash desk. And so he was driving around the town and finally he got the tickets. And he was so happy. And he was going back and it was like perfect, sunny, warm, spring day. And, when you're really happy, you see everything around you in such a positive way, everyone is nice and, the whole world is just one big festival. And in such a mood, he was like driving back on a high speed, of course, because, he had to be on time. And then he stopped at the lights, at this, red light. And the other car stopped next to him. And the people in that car, they looked at him, but they didn't look very happy at all. They looked at him very angrily. And then one of them jumped out of the car and ran towards his car, and the windows were down. And he said, next thing I saw that, he tried to punch me in the face with no introduction whatsoever. I saw the fist flying towards my face, and I dodged, and that man missed. And then next thing, he tried to kick me with his foot. I saw his foot flying into the window, into my face, and he said I dodged again, and he had these light slippers, and his slipper slipped off and went inside the car, and went at the towards the back seat of the car. And the devotee who was sitting there, he picked up the slipper, and he said, "Sir, is that your slipper?" And he said, "Yes, this is my slipper." So he snatched the slipper away, and he actually, punched the body of the car very hard, and then he went, and then they just sped off. And that devotee, he was completely shocked. He said, "What happened? Who are these people? Why are they so angry at us? What have we done?" And the devotee who was sitting behind, he said, "I know what we've done. Because you were speeding in, you were not looking, and you passed by the, place where the sewage pipe broke, and there was a big flood, from sewage water on the road, and you just went through that thing on a high speed, and all this sewage water, because these people, they were parked on the side of the road, all the sewage water went, because the windows were down, went inside of their car, on the top of them." And this is what happened next. They caught up with him, and then this was, this is how they expressed their dissatisfaction. So, very interesting stories. Sometimes we think, oh, we've done nothing wrong. But actually, because I'm doing the conflict resolution for more than 10 years, we say that every conflict story has at least 3 explanations, completely different from each other. From one side, from the opposite side, and from neutral side. And sometimes if there are more than one neutral side, you will hear different stories like that. So this is the first thing to look at. Are we actually innocent? Because nothing happens for no reason. There is a reason for everything happening in our lives. So this is how we can live without any conflicts.
Talking about these things is making karma, bad karma.
Yes, if someone misbehaves towards us, we become purified. Of course, this is not to justify those devotees who want to misbehave and purify everyone. But if someone misbehaves and purifies, towards us, that we can understand we become purified from our karma. And if we criticize or treat negatively anyone, we take that person's karma. That's why you often see sometimes people criticize someone, and then next thing they do exactly the same thing they criticize. Anyone saw that happening? This is how the laws of karma work.
I didn't understand the question.
If you criticize someone, you may end up doing exactly the same thing you criticize. This is how the laws of karma work, so we have to be very careful. Okay, last question, and we'll have to stop.
You told the story about young woman who attracts young men to Krishna consciousness. But maybe consider it's more like a joke, because first of all, our purity is important in preaching.
Well, of course, Prabhupada was joking, but the principle is still there, that it is true that, sometimes when, for example, there is a Harinam, men only, especially in the West, people think, what happened? Where are the ladies? Did you got rid of all them? It seems kind of, bit too heavy for Western people. Of course, in India it's different because people know culture. Or these people are Vairagis, so they have nothing to do with women. But in the West, if society is consisting of men only, it's not really impressing people. But if they see nicely dressed ladies dancing in Harinam, they can understand, okay, these guys are not fanatics. These are not religious fanatics. These are normal people. I can interact with them. So every joke has some truth in it. All right? So thank you all very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.